Take photos and be respectful of everyone on board. And will be your tour guide, and he's one of our best tour guides. Let's go for boat ride.
Yeah, let's hear from Captain Eric. Woo. How's everyone doing? Good. Welcome aboard. As Captain Eric said, I'm William. Logan will be your docent. It's Vince Bradford for tour guide over the next 75 minutes. It's a nice day for a boat ride. This is great. Weather is weird in Chicago, so I don't even begin to get into it. But the way I can look at things, as long as it's not 45 degrees, raining sideways, and you're not a school group, I'm happy to be here with you as far as I'm concerned. It's late August, so I truly do not know how many more days like this we have left before I have 8 layers on. So for now, a beautiful day for a boat ride. The plan for the next 75 minutes is actually pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to get turned around here in Ogden Slip near Navy Pier, and we're going to head west down what is the main branch of the Chicago River. Eventually we'll get to a place called Wolf Point where the the branches converge. We'll head up the north branch, down the south branch, and we'll make our way right back here in just 75 short minutes. But that also means we'll be passing everything twice, right? So if we miss something on the way down, don't worry, we'll probably get it on the way back up again. I don't want to be too boastful at the beginning. I know a lot of you are going to want photos. I promise I will let you know when all the great photos are. Unless you have artistic preference, but don't worry, if you're wondering why I'm not talking about a building, don't worry, there's a better view coming, I promise. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the architecture, and I guess how everything's kind of intertwined together, interconnected over history here in Chicago, I think it's important to kind of zoom out a little bit, right? Get some context of the city as a whole, right? And the way I like to do that is to go back to the 1670s. Great decade. Why the 1670s? That was when we had our first non-native visitors here to the city of Chicago. 2 French guys. They came up the Mississippi River, up the Des Plaines River eventually, and then ended there. So Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet, they got out and they walked about 30-40 miles here to their east until they arrived in Chicago. Although it wasn't really Chicago back then, it was kind of a marshland near Lake Michigan, and then it was called something just a little bit different, Chicagoua. Chicagoua by the Potawatomi Native Americans who lived here at the time. And it doesn't take a linguist, no, to see that those 2 names are connected. But the mistake most people make is that it's the same thing. It's not different. I mean, it isn't the same thing. It's different. And the difference comes into play, Chicagoua to Chicago, when you translate Chicagoua into English from Potawatomi, you get, "Oh man, that place smells like a skunk." That's the literal translation. Yeah. I had it wrong until I had a Potawatomi passenger say, "You got a little wrong. Skunk is the word, Chicago, is the word for skunk in the language, and wa kind of operates like an onomatopoeia in the language, meaning, oh man, that really stinks. So technically, I'm here to welcome you to, oh man, that place smells like a skunk. Now, there's a pretty popular translation you'll read in most history books. It's stinky onion or skunk onion. And the reason people get that is the reason it smelled like a skunk here was an onion that was native to the marshland, right? Had a foul odor, that's where we got our name. And I don't like to get rid of that nickname either, because if New York City, on the East Coast, they're the Big Apple, then that makes us here in the Midwest the stinky onion. And we're very proud to be so. The river, back in the 1670s, looked quite different as well. It was roughly 4 feet wide and 2 feet deep on average. There were some places where it was pretty much a puddle. We kind of made it a little bit more consistent, drudged it out in the 1800s for shipping purposes. It really began to boom as an industrial city. We made some pretty significant mistakes along the way. We also righted those wrongs. A pretty cool and well-planned city. And we absolutely get more into our history and how things have changed over the years, but I do want to point out this first bridge really quickly. We'll be going underneath a number of bridges throughout the tour today, and no 2 of them are exactly the same in their design. Lots of different styles to choose from over 100 years, so take some time, find your favorite. All different, whether it be the bridge itself or the bridge houses. Lots of great different styles to choose from. Our bridges, they're pretty cool. We'll talk more about them. But no, maybe I'll show you my favorite a little bit later on in the tour. Oh, hey, that's Captain Paul. He drives our boat sometimes. Now, also a great photo opportunity as we enter kind of this canyon of skyscrapers. Like I said, I'll point out a lot of really great photo opportunities. This is one of them. just remember, yeah, always be respectful of your neighbors. So if you grab that same photo, if you grab that photo and let them, the person behind you grab that same photo, enjoy that same view. We do want as many Instagram likes and Christmas cards as possible. We'll begin by going to the left. Rising reinforced concrete with an undulating facade on Vista Tower. Vista Tower still under construction. This reinforced concrete behemoth getting a little more slender as it goes up. They're about number 71-ish, 71. When it tops out, it'll be 1,191 feet tall, 98 stories. So they still got a ways to go. It'll take its place as Chicago's new third tallest building. Luxury hotel and residence designed by Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang, she's awesome. She's a Chicagoan. Their main office is located here in the city. The undulating design of Vista comes from what are called inverted stacked frustrums. Sounds kind of complicated. It's actually not too bad. How we get there, take a pyramid, chop off the top. Now flip it, stack it, flip it, stack it, flip it, stack it, and that's how you get Vista. That truncated pyramid is called a frustrum. It's fancy word. Soon be covered in a blue-green glass curtain wall, although rumor has it that this is all going to have to come down a little bit that they put up. Apparently they had a problem with the manufacturer, so they're going to have to go with a new one. It's still on time to be completed in 2020, but usually at this stage you have more glass. Kind of cool though to watch just the raw concrete rise as well. If you want to buy at Vista, I recommend you do so soon. They're 40% sold already, which is really pretty good at this stage of construction. Especially considering if you want to buy in at Vista, 1 bedroom, 1.5 bath, $950,000. Very luxurious. I don't like to judge people who have money, but now we get this a little bit. To the right, Centennial Fountain. It's a big, beautiful fountain along our river. It's actually one of my favorite places in town, just because it's lesser known. But we'll talk about the 100th anniversary it celebrates on our way back. In the meantime, we're going to go back to the left. You see this blue glass triangular skyscraper? It's called the Swiss Hotel. Now look above it and beyond it, and you'll find white waves on Aqua. Aqua is a hotel and residence from 2009, also by Jeannie Gang. This one really put her on the map in terms of tall buildings. I don't really think she's very interested in tall buildings. She doesn't like kind of the, I don't think she likes the attention she gets, but I think after she did Aqua, she started getting offers she could not turn down. She started to embrace tall buildings after this. Each one of these concrete waves is a balcony, each one a little bit different than the next. And the idea here is to maximize views. If you have a 2-foot balcony, you already have a great view of something. But she would take you all the way up to about 13 feet to try to get you a similar view. They also reduce wind sway in the building with its irregularity. Birds are less likely to fly into blue glass. It's more energy efficient. It reduces solar glare during the summertime, so it's cheaper and better for the environment. And on top of all of that, it just looks really cool. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, Jeannie Gang, she's awesome. She is a genius. And that is not my opinion. I mean, it is, but she's also MacArthur Genius Grant recipient for the world of architecture. So the most qualified folks in the world, they agree with me. She's awesome. Keep an eye on likely bigger things to come. Now, as we continue going down the main branch, we're going to do some style hopping. We're going to go from building to building, building to building, building to building, to building to building to building, getting a different style one after the next, right? So if you're an architecture buff, great, we can review. And if you're not, if you just want to drink a beer and look at some pretty buildings, then you'll know what we're talking about too. We'll start off with this beautiful white clock tower building coming up here in front of us. This is the Wrigley building from 1922, the Wrigley. It's an example of the fine arts style of architecture. Fine arts is beaux-arts in French, translates to beautiful arts, and it's known for its European influence and decoration. My friend Bridget says if your building looks like it belongs on top of a wedding cake, probably fine arts, and I find it's a pretty good rule. A great example with the Wrigley building. It's modeled after La Giralda Tower in Sevilla, Spain, that clock tower, by Mr. Charles Biersman for William Wrigley Jr. Might ring a bell for some of you. Same guy behind the gum if you've ever had Juicy Fruit, or The Field if you're a Cubs fan. This one really set the tone for both size and style. We'll actually get a really great view of it. My favorite is make our way underneath the Michigan Avenue Bridge, our magnificent mile. You'll actually see we also named it DuSable Bridge for our first permanent non-native resident. His name, Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable, or as we call him here in Chicago, Jean-Baptiste Pointe DuSable. So we named it DuSable Bridge in his honor. Because he lived right here at the time of the Revolutionary War. He was a Haitian fur trader of African and French descent, and this is where he traded furs. So we named the bridge after him, and then we built him an Apple store. So hopefully we're done. Yeah, I love the verticality of the Wrigley building from this angle. It was really a tall building back in 1922. It's hard to imagine that, but as we come underneath the bridge, you get an idea for maybe how sweeping it might have felt in the 20s. Yes, hello. You wouldn't believe how much we have to pay him to do that. Surprises. So that's the most distant style, fine arts, right? Fine arts. The most recent is called postmodern design. Postmodern. We have an example of Trump Tower from 2009 by Chicago architect Adrian Smith, the second tallest in Chicago, and also an example of contextualism. Contextualism. It's a way that buildings talk to their surroundings. I know how that sounds, but they do. See these large balconies? Those are called setbacks, and each one here is set at the height of a surrounding building that came before it, or it gives it some context, tips its cap. So the first was the height of the Wrigley. The second setback is the height of Mather Tower. Mather Tower being this terracotta rocket ship here to our left. And then the tallest setback is the height of AMA Plaza, a glass and steel black box coming up just beyond it. And the reason I like to go to AMA Plaza, 1971, the IBM building, is because it's the style that comes right before postmodern, making it modern. Yeah, you got it. You're on it. Yeah. Modernism, designed by the late great Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He is known as the father of the style, the best in the world. So if you can, I think we should start with him. A glass and steel black box. All right, that's it. We're done. That's modernism, right? That was kind of the point, too. Mies van der Rohe said less is more. Yeah, God is in the details. He wanted seamless lines, powerful and austere design. No one was better than him. Now, he's also a teacher. One of his students disagreed with him, and I know that because he designed these corn cob towers right next door. Right, I think we can say with pretty good certainty, teacher and pupil having some relatively small disagreements on what they thought modern architecture should look like. Bertrand Goldberg, unlike his professor, said, I don't see right angles in nature, and that's why I don't want to see very many in my architecture, which is actually pretty revolutionary considering the 60s. Right, this is 60 years before Jeannie Gang's curved concrete comes to life. Bertrand Goldberg, revolutionary in his aesthetic, but also what he did inside. Back in the 60s, downtown Chicago was not a lovely place to spend an afternoon. It was a city of blue-collar industry, right? It was a city of business. And Bertrand Goldberg wanted people to live here despite that, so he designed a place where you could park your boat. Underneath your car. Underneath your condo. Bowling alley, movie theater, fitness center, shops, restaurants, offices, grocery store, ice skating rink, all inside. He called it a city within a city, and he saw wild success. Changed the way we look at designing our urban residences. We'll actually see more. For now, we're going to go to the left for a shorter building, kind of here in the shadows almost, 55 West Wacker. This is a style called brutalism. Brutalism, I think, is kind of phonetically accurate. It actually comes from the French béton brut, means raw concrete. Let's see why it gets that name. That's exactly what they wanted. Massive, dark inset windows, a fortress. I like to imagine somebody going up to a brutalist architect and going, hey, your building isn't very pretty. And the brutalist architect going, yeah, thanks, I guess. Right? Because that wasn't the point, right? Modernism was an age rebelling against decoration. This kind of coincided with it. It was about a bunker, a statement of power. Brutalism. Something you don't see a lot. Most people don't do that. But I'm glad we have the one. Something you also don't see a lot of here on our right, at least not in cities, is the Prairie School of Architecture, popularized by Frank Lloyd Wright here in the Breed Murdoch Center. This one's actually by George C. Nimitz. I don't want to talk Prairie School though. I want to draw your eyes to its asymmetry. There are 6 banks of windows on the right side of the clock tower, only 5 on the left. This is pertinent because symmetry is a principal element of design. As human beings, we just like looking at things that are symmetric. It's why everybody likes looking at Ryan Gosling's face. Pretty people have symmetric faces. It's just the way things are. And so this was built with 6 and 6. For that reason, we like looking at it. It wasn't actually until 1928 they widened LaSalle Street for a new bridge and ran out of room. The only solution, oh yeah, lob off part of the building on the left-hand side, which is a brickwork to patch on. Most people don't find it unless they point it out. They did a pretty good job. So that was the Prairie School. There's also a style called the Chicago School. It's kind of an important one to talk about on this tour. We have a really great example coming up here to our right with the Lane Curtis building. You won't forget it here because the building is labeled. It's home to the School of Professional Psychology, but it works for the tour. Concrete, brick, glass on top. I'm going to take you back to 6th grade. Do you remember learning about columns? Like a Corinthian column? They have 3 parts: columns, a base, a shaft, and a capital. The same is true for a Chicago school building, right? Here it's clearly defined. It's also called a tripartite design for those 3 parts. So a great way to impress friends and family after the tour with all of your newfound knowledge. Just casually slip tripartite in a conversation. You'll find it. Staying to the right, the Merchandise Arms, 1930. The style here, Art Deco. Art Deco, very popular in the 20s and 30s. Limestone siding is our first major clue. The second, vertical lines with dark panels. They draw your eyes back and up. The question I get most often though, what's up with the green heads? The bus, facing away from us, who are they? You got Marshall Field, Montgomery Ward, Wanamaker, Sears, Merchant Princes. We're the Pez dispensers of Chicago, if you're David Letterman. I'm gonna level with you. That one feels more appropriate most of the time. What way to beer around? We'll catch the Merchandise Mart from a different angle a little bit later on in the tour. In the meantime, we're making our way out onto what is known as Wolf Point. Wolf Point, welcome to the center of nightlife in Chicago in 1837. Right here, back when the river was much smaller. This is where the first couple of Chicagoans went out on a Friday night. But it wasn't a very popular place to be until recently. I'm about to lose your attention if I haven't already. And I've accepted that. It's okay, you go and you come back. Here's the thing though, before you go, half of the buildings you're looking at along the river at Wolf Point weren't here 4 years ago. Half. Significant, right? If you came here 5 years ago, you'd see a lot more rail lines and parking lots. Nowadays though, it's a hub for our city's development, specifically 2 brand new blue glass skyscrapers here in front of us, both from 2017. The style, I'm not sure yet. It's just too early to say, right? You can't really clearly define art and architecture until it's into the past a bit, right? During the Renaissance, they weren't like, this is the Renaissance! Just later, they figured it out. Here's some trends that I can give you about these buildings. I think it's kind of like the smartphone in your pocket. It's sleek and glassy on the outside, right? Maybe some trim, nothing more than that though. A technological powerhouse, often energy efficient on the inside. We'll talk engineering at 150 right later on. For now, I do want to talk about River Point with its inverted parabolas because I don't think it gets the attention it deserves. It's a beautiful design by Picard Chilton. It's an important lot and has this beautiful river walk to honor Wolf Point. I do enjoy this building, even though I had a passenger recently point out it looks like a giant glass hot pocket. The problem with that observation is, yeah, it does. It looks like that. I can't seem to get it out of my head, so I decided to start putting it indoors. You're welcome. As we head on to the North Branch, anything drawing your eye in particular? Tends to be the upright bridge, right? Yeah, this is the 1908 Kinsey Street Railroad Bridge. It's no longer in use. It's a dead bridge. It's also a working bridge. It's a dead working bridge. Bit of a contradiction. So it leads to nowhere, but it's a landmark, so it must be maintained to some degree of its original integrity. So what they do here is they bring it down just once a year. It's a secret. They drive a specially made pickup truck across the rail lines instead, collect some funds, call it a year, and put it back in the wheel. That's it. I mean, theoretically, it could see use. I don't think that's in the future. It has about 6 feet of clearance over the river, so this would have to be going up and down constantly. So if it fell on us, that would be good news. But it won't fall on us because they maintain the concrete counterweight on the back end, keeping the steel bridge upright. It's powered by just a tiny little motor. Certainly an engineering feat for 1908, but I think it holds up kind of as a piece of public art all on its own. It certainly commands attention. Next up, we're going to go to the left. Do you remember that triangular skyscraper in front of Aqua? That Swiss hotel? It was by a man named Harry Weiss. Harry Weiss did a piece of architecture in our surroundings. Anybody have a guess? Yeah, these upcoming river cottages coming up here to our left with triangles. Yes, that's kind of his signature. These river cottages were done in 1990 by Harry Weiss, and he's known for being a sailor, right, as well as an architect. Triangles like sails, or circles like portholes, in virtually every design he has ever done. There are 4 river cottages here. They're kind of like townhomes. They go vertically, and they're pretty iconic nowadays, and they don't go on the market very often, especially not now. One of the, I think 2 of them still have the original owners from 1990. But the one in the middle, you'll actually see as we get a little bit closer, it's under construction. It's being completely renovated inside and out. That one hit the market 3 years ago. Sold for $2.3 million for your own piece, the River's Edge. And I am no real estate expert, but my guess is good investment. Probably not getting anything less than $3 million for that, just 3 years. Now, as we make our way out to the North Branch, I'm going to hop off the mic here for just a moment while we get turned around so we can head down the South Branch. Give you a quick break from this voice, give you ever so slight break. I'll give you an opportunity if you'd like to go visit or revisit Rishi and Sylvia, your bartenders. Stay hydrated in whatever way you see fit. Great people, even better bartenders. Treat them well, tip them well. I will, of course, be around for questions in the meantime. All you need to do is let me know.
How you doing, folks?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. You had like a balcony. Yeah. It's gotta be each one is separate, right? That was, yeah.
Alrighty, we are back. So, the place we are going next is relatively important. And the reason it's important is just solely because I'm about to show you the oldest thing along the Chicago River. It's coming up here just past this tree, a pink brick building, slowly coming into view. This is Fulton House. Fulton House was built back in the year 1898, originally designed by a man named Frank Abbott to be a giant freezer. A cold storage warehouse for the meatpacking industry down at the Union Stockyards. Featured 4-foot thick walls to keep all that cold air in. In fact, you can start to get a feel for how thick those walls were with balconies they had in their place. Those 4-foot thick walls, they were originally stuffed with a combination of two things: horsehair and cork as insulation. Guess it worked well. Then in the 80s, who reimagined them into condos? Look up top. Portholes. Harry Weiss reimagines them in the 80s. Pretty unique piece of residential real estate. And the question I get most often, how much, really, does it cost to live along the river? And the best answer I've come up with thus far is, how much you willing to pay? I can do a little bit better. I can give you a little bit wider of a range. Let's start with a low-rise, one-bedroom, along the river, facing the parking garage next door. You can buy in $200,000, give or take, of course. Get a bigger place, get a better place, get a better view, head on up, price goes up. For a mansionette, that's a word, or townhome along the river, that is your about $2 million, give or take, upwards about 7 or 8. $18.5 million for the newest penthouse over in Vista in 2020. And as of 3 weeks ago, that penthouse is under contract. Which means a human being, a real person, saw that price tag and went, yeah, we could probably work something out. So if you're feeling bad about yourself, as I often do after saying that, it's okay, we can cheer ourselves up with a beautiful view back down the main range. Great lesser known view back down a canyon of skyscrapers. So. Yeah, great question. So here to our right, there are fans, the porthole type fans here. There are rail lines that run underneath the entire right side of our south branch down to Union Station, so those are blowing out industrial exhaust. Great question. And speaking of which, that brings us to why 150 North Riverside, this martini glass shaped foundation, is so small. Sandwiched right in between rail lines and the river, 75% of this building is built directly above nothing. Air, I guess? So instead all that mass has to go somewhere. It's cantilevered down into its primary foundation, which then has a concrete and steel caisson foundation. It's dug down through what is essentially marshland, muck, clay, and down into bedrock, which you'll typically find about 100 feet down. Here it's 120 feet down, so it is firmly affixed to the ground. I found though, passengers are often surprised to find out the engineering is not my favorite part of this building. And it's not my favorite part. My favorite part, as you come underneath the bridge, look up. Into a reflection. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, sure, give yourself a wave. Why not? How do you look? Oh, yeah, that is my favorite part, easily. They also found a bit of a problem when it came to wind tests on a model. They discovered the top of this building kind of catches wind, like a sail. This is not something you want in a skyscraper, so to combat that, they put 200,000 gallons worth or so of water tanks in the top of the building, and they fill and unfill with water as the winds pick up and die down. It's called a tune sloshing damper or dampener, and the idea, kind of simplified, is this. If the building has to give, right, or sway in one direction, the tanks will go with it, but the water won't. It'll stay, and then it'll become a center of gravity and encouraging the building upright. The largest of its kind in the world thus far, and so far so good. To the left, have new excavation work beginning at 110 North Wacker. They finished up the caissons, moving on to getting ready to lay the first floor plate, which should be really next week. They're not going too far down with this one, but they are going up about 52 stories. We'll talk more about this design though on our way back. For the meantime, we're actually going to go to the forward on either side of the river, what I like to call dueling Art Deco. Both of these buildings were completed in the year 1929. Both of them are Art Deco. They have a lot in common, and they've known each other for quite some time. This is a lava bridge. Glad we weren't underneath that, just be warned. They have a lot in common, these buildings. They also have some differences, particularly how they treat the river. To the right, a beautiful riverside plaza. Okay? To the left, not exactly. Same year. What does that mean? One had to be strange. They couldn't both be normal. And the strange one was here where the Riverside Plaza. Because you see, back in 1929, no one used it. In fact, you went out of your way to steer blocks clear of the river at that time, because the river was also Chicago's sewer. Yeah, for pretty much everything. Which actually prompts a lot of questions usually, like, what exactly was put in the river? The answer? Yes. Really contrasting today, if you're a private building and you want to build along the river today, well, that's great, but you must account for a public river walk or plaza in that design. And the land can't have the water. Underneath the building, here to our right, see those train tracks coming into view, massive network leading down to Union Station. Now, what I find most interesting about the buildings to the right side of the South Branch, they don't own the land they're built on. The railroad companies do. And then the railroad companies lease what are called air rights, the ability to build above the tracks, to these buildings for roughly $2 million a year. A great way to make an extra buck, or $2 million if you're a railroad company. Air rights, they're important, especially as cities become more dense, play a role later on in the tour. Up and to the left, the tallest building in Chicago, the Sears or Willis Tower. We'll talk more about it later on, but I actually don't know how visibility is going to be, and this is kind of the main event, so I'm going to talk about it now, and we can enjoy views later on, because on my first tour you couldn't see the top of the building, so just in case it goes away in the next couple of minutes, we're going to talk about the Sears right now. Sorry if you have to crane your neck, but I do want to get it in. 1,451 feet tall, the tallest building in Chicago. Today, still the tallest building in our city. It was the tallest building in the world for 24 years. The Sears is 110 stories, 100 elevators, has 16,000 windows. It's massive. And if you take your eyes to the 103rd floors between these two buildings, you'll see glass boxes hanging off the western-facing facade on 103rd floor. Peeking out right now, those glass boxes, those are the ledge and skydeck. There are people in those glass boxes. They're taking pictures of us. No, yeah, you're good. You can take pictures of them if you want. It's a reciprocal thing. Okay. Anybody been up to the ledge, this guy? Alright, good. Out on the ledge as well? Okay, good for you. Good for you. It's pretty fun. If you're looking for a view or an adrenaline rush, we'll have one last view here. That's where hopefully the day just gets clearer and clearer, but I found in this job if I didn't talk about it right now, when I waited, it would go away. Pretty cool, actually. You can kind of feel the true magnitude of it in between these two buildings. To our left, 1,451 feet. Alright, we can talk more about it later on. For now, we're actually going to go up here to our left to a building I used to not talk about until 5 years ago, when the owner commissioned an artist to do a mural on the side of the building. You know, that owner sitting down with the artist saying, listen, William isn't mentioning us on his tours anymore. We need to shake things up. Clearly, we need something that's going to put us back on the map again. The artist went with a giant "You Are Here" map painted on the side of this building. The red rectangle is the building from above. We can just to the left of it. See Wolf Point meeting at the top? You are here. You're seeing it, right? And I suppose, most importantly, it worked. It's back on the tour. Yeah, mission accomplished. Then we're gonna go to the right. Is anyone here a fan of the Dark Knight film with Heath Ledger as the Joker? Yeah, there's always a bunch of us. It's a great movie. I watched it last week. Still holds up. Great movie. That iconic opening scene where the Joker's henchman busts a window and zip lines on the top of Gotham City Bank, that was filmed in between these two buildings. This massive 2 million square foot Art Deco building. It's obviously not Gotham City Bank, right? It's not. It's Chicago's old post office, as in the largest post office in the world. And we needed it for a long time, from the 20s to the 90s. But by the time the 90s rolled around, we needed a new, smaller post office, more efficient. So this was vacated in 1996, and this is where things get important. It sat vacant and falling apart until 2017. When I was 2, this building was vacated, and it's been a haunted house until last year. Now, it's not looking so bad, because construction is underway, right? It's not looking so bad at all. As we speak, an $800 million commercial renovation is underway. They're completely rehabbing the outside, converting the inside into a luxury office space, a public riverwalk as required, and if all that wasn't enough, a 3.5-acre rooftop park. It's going to be beautiful. And I'm frustrated about it because I don't know how to handle it. For my entire life, all I've known is that haunted house. And I mean, of course I'm excited, obviously, but I don't want to talk about it on the tour. Definitely good news, that's for sure, especially for this part of town. They got a big win too. About 3 months ago now, maybe just 2 months, Walgreens officially signed on for 200,000 square feet of office space. They're moving 1,800 jobs from the suburbs in here in 2019. Huge win. I'm definitely happy, I just don't know how to think about it. It's pretty, it's gonna be good. And for those of you going, William, I'm glad you're all conflicted about the old post office, but I don't really care about the old post office. I care about the new post office. I haven't forgotten about you. It's coming up right here to the right. We built it right across the street in 1996. Knight Architects, our new post office. And that is all I have to say about it. So we're going to go to the left. It's for a neighborhood called Printers Row. Printers Row. It's known for large mail order catalog printers in the 1900s. One of the reasons we needed that post office to be so big. Nowadays, this neighborhood in our South Loop is largely residential. Some exceptions, of course, but largely residential. And what's happening here to our left is no exception. This entire bit of land here is called South Bank. South Bank. It's going to be a 10-year project. Plan to develop every inch of it. It's pretty ambitious. They're 2 years into it already too. This zigzaggy painted white concrete. This is the Cooper at South Bank. The first of about 4 or 5 like it, depending. But the next phase of the project is what I'm excited about. The next phase of the project is what we see along the river. Drilling in pilings. This was an elevated lot with tree line. Now it's going to be a beautiful river walk and over 2 acres of park. On a practical level, I'm sure they're doing this next. Why? To market the residences, right? So they can get revenue to continue building. But for those of us not buying and selling, and for thousands of people who live in this neighborhood, who cares? It's going to be a beautiful, brand new public access point for the entire neighborhood. Property values probably won't get hurt by it either. Eventually, everything will join these curved concrete Jetsons like residences. Anybody recognize it? Bertrand Goldberg, right back at the Corn Cobs, Marina City Towers. This is River City. Same idea, a curved concrete city within a city. Definitely his signature. If you see curved concrete, it's probably Bertrand Goldberg. I mean, of course, some exceptions, but my money's on him. One of my favorite examples outside of Chicago, have any of you taken the subway in Washington, D.C.? A couple of you, those curving brutalist train stations at the same time. Definitely pretty famous for it. Bertrand Goldberg. Then we're going to go up and to the right, some smokestacks coming up at an old power plant. This one used to power the train station, but has not done so in about 14 years. I think it's kind of grown on me though. I used to ignore it, then other folks' curiosity kind of piqued my own, and I think it's a cool image of an industrial past you often hear about in Chicago's past, but you don't see a lot of today, right? The city of broad shoulders. Anybody heard that nickname of Chicago? Well, it's because our origins as a city, the reason we grew so quickly to become one of the largest in the United States, were industries like mail order catalog printing, right? Lumber, steel, meat packaging, shipping by waterway and railway. And those industries certainly don't exist in the same way what they once did, but this takes you back to that time. The city of broad shoulders. Oh, an industry you should talk about today, for Chicago, that you probably aren't hearing about. The film and television industry. At least for us here, it's changing in a major way. If you came here like 10 years ago, around the time The Dark Knight was filming, probably averaging 50, 75 million a year, maybe, on a good year. This upcoming season, or I should say actually this last calendar year, this last fiscal year, it was just over $500 million industry in the city of Chicago. It's all thanks to a film studio. It's about 4 miles here to our west, an old steel plant that they renovated into sound studios. CineSpace, it's called. They've officially completed 30 sound stages, and they're all completely in use. For reference, Universal Studios in Hollywood has 31. And they just bought up some other land around the city to continue expanding. So it's an exciting time. It's a relevant industry to talk about. It's also relevant to you because these couple weeks in August are the busiest time of the year for filming. How do I know this? My passengers, right? Getting on the boat and going, oh yeah, we took a walk through the city yesterday and we walked through 3 different film sets on our way around town. So I guess what I'm saying to you is stay looking good. Right? Your featured extra, it's never too early or too late for a career change. I believe in you. I see a lot of star power potential on this boat ride. And just to be clear, I'm talking specifically about you. I believe in you. As we get turned around on our south branch, beautiful skyline view looking north. Feel free to grab a photo or just enjoy the view. Just make sure the person behind you can do the same. Yeah, all those Chicago shows, you're probably familiar with them by now on NBC, right? They're kind of what got the ball rolling here. Those Dick Wolf procedurals. But you've heard of them: Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Med, Sanitation, Marinas, Justice. They're all filmed in Chicago. They got it started, but I find people kind of either watch those shows or they don't. But I have all the time passengers take this boat ride and go, I don't watch anything that's filmed in Chicago. You might. One of the most watched shows on television, Empire on Fox. Where does it take place? New York City. Kind of. 90% of it is filmed in the city of Chicago. There's a pretty famous scene where the characters are walking out of a New York City courthouse that looks suspiciously like the Art Institute over on Michigan Avenue. Dressed up to look like the New York City courthouse. Yeah, Shameless is here every couple of weeks, or for a couple of weeks every year to do their outdoor stuff. They shoot at Warner Brothers out in LA, but there are 10 full-time shows, 2 part-times. Yeah, I believe in you. And if I'm going to level with you, if I'm being completely honest, the reason I have an interest in this, I am a member of the arts and theater community here in Chicago. So what that means is a lot of my friends are trauma victims on NBC. Those shows have been going for like 6 years now. 24 episodes a season. You got to kill or at least injure 2 people an episode. You go through a lot of folks. Those are my friends. Watching your friends die on national television. It's more fun than it sounds. It's good. Shoreline was finally featured. Season finale of Chicago Fire. Moment in the spotlight. We're going to get back to this skyline in just a moment. Absolutely. But first, we need to talk about why this is an important part of our city. This part of town? Yeah, it's really important. Specifically, what we see here to our left. I see a lot of you taking photos, so feel free to grab a photo. Okay, don't. But find a communications tower in the distance, beyond a parking garage. It's got a reddish top. In the distance, that is where the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 began. I don't know if you heard, we had a bit of a fire back in the day, and that's where it started. Anybody here know this story? Just shout out some buzzwords if you do. There, yeah, somebody's cow. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, you got it. The story goes like this, for those of you who may not know. Sunday, October 8th of 1871. Mrs. Catherine O'Leary. She leaves a kerosene lantern in her barn, and her cow, as her cow Daisy, kicks over that kerosene lantern, starting to hay the barn, and eventually the city ablaze. And it's not true. It's a good story. It's not true. It's told for over 100 years. It's not true. Songs written about it, still sung today, and most importantly, it is not. Thank you. It recently came to my attention. I apparently need to say that more than 3 times. It's not true. but it's a good story. I'm a storyteller, and it has all of the makings of a really good story. And at the end of the day, how did the fire begin? We don't know. And we never will, for sure, so I think the comics are a pretty good placeholder. Here's what we do know. The flames worked their way from the Eldiri barn to the river, where it was then fueled by oil-based industrial waste into the city center, where it burned for another 3 days, taking out half the city, killing 300, taking down 18,000 structures, leaving 100,000 Chicagoans homeless. That was a third of the population at the time. Completely devastating a young and thriving city. And all over the world, the fire was reported in many different languages. For most people in the world, hearing about Chicago for the first time in their newspaper, in the form of what was virtually an obituary, right? It was reported that the end of Chicago had came, right? It was the death of the industrial heart of the United States. Every paper, for the most part, wrote that article. Everyone, except for one, for the most part. Anybody have a guess? Chicago Tribune. Yeah, they predicted, really before they should have, before we even knew what damage had been done, that Chicago would rise from the ashes and rebuild a second city. Right? That's where we get our nickname from. We had to build another one. We didn't just build another city, another first Chicago. We righted wrong. We put in zoning laws. We put in pumping systems that would work in a fire. We put city planning at the forefront, and we eventually rebuilt to become the greatest city in the world. That's an applause line. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. I say this knowing most of you visiting, right? Of course, many of you are going to disagree with me, and that's fine if you think another city is great. I don't even think you should necessarily change your mind. I do think, however, if you're feeling that strongly about it, you should get yourself a boat and a microphone and say whatever you want on your tour. But for these 75 short minutes, this is the greatest city in the world. What's up? Who's that statue? That's a great question. That's Ceres. Ceres is on top of the Board of Trade. She's the Roman goddess of the harvest. It's a commodities exchange for agricultural commodities. She's up there. Art Deco, very tall building, 1930. Oliver Rim behind it. It's arguably also our greatest movie star. If we're talking about movie stars in Chicago, it's been a bunch of stuff over the years. Most recently, perhaps not most recently, but the Wayne Enterprises and the Batman Begins was probably one of its biggest breaks. It's beautiful. It's in LaSalle Street. Gorgeous. And then I wait to talk about these buildings usually until now, right? We got a little taste of the Sears earlier on, but we're going to talk about them now together because I think these two buildings make a really great pair, right? I call them the king and queen chess pieces or skyline. First up is 311 South Wacker, Peterson and Fox, 1990. It's pretty in the pink. Pink granite from Texas, actually. Is anyone here from Texas? A very subdued woo. They usually do. I like that. Thanks for the granite. Up top, kind of an off-white, off-green crown. It's not much during the day, but at night, that is the brightest thing in our skyline by far. If you take a look up tonight, you'll see it. And it was a whole lot brighter when they first turned it on. I was surprised to find that out. In 1990, when they first turned it on, it was so bright, two things happened. Calls came from residents of the city of Chicago saying, hey, that's obnoxious. Can you please turn it down? And then the second set of phone calls came from scientists who study migratory patterns of birds. They said, hey, there's a building in your skyline, and this past fall, birds were using it for the moon, and it's messing with migration patterns across the Midwest. So we did it. But take a look up. Great photo opportunity here as we re-see that meeting. We can still see the top coming out for you on the Sears Tower, yeah, or the Willis Tower, yeah, if you're from out of town. Yeah. Here in Chicago, it's the Sears for the most part. The bundled tube system that premiered here with the Sears, we can really clearly see now. See how it's not one tower, it's actually 9 towers, 3 by 3, and only the last 2 go all the way up. The bundled tube system. Bruce Graham and Foster Pond gave it to us with the Sears, and the idea behind it is pretty simple, actually, looking back now 50 years later almost. If you hold a long piece of straw out in the wind, what's going to happen? Yeah, not ideal for a building full of people. But if you bundle a bunch of straw together, different heights, and you hold it out again, you have more structural integrity. It's not complicated, but it changed how tall we could build buildings on planet Earth, right? Not complicated, but for thousands of years of engineering and architecture until 1973, nobody thought of it before. It's going to take a break behind New York Air now. For now, we're going to go to the left for a different type of contextualism at Gateway Center 4 by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. This building is tipping its cap, but not to another building. To the curve and color of the river that we just did in that bend. Also, if you look in the reflection, it doesn't look like you're looking in the reflection of a building, does it? It looks like you're looking in the reflection of water. Yeah, bubble glass. It's convex, pinched glass. It bows outward. Gets its nickname because it also makes the building look like it's wrapped in bubble. I like this building. It's very subtle. I find most people don't notice the details about this building because they don't stick around long enough. But for those of us who do, you get to really enjoy something unique. That was in the 80s. Then we move into the 70s. A white box. What is this? This is international style, right? We saw that glass and steel black box earlier on with the 60s and the 70s. You can start playing with some white or gray stone on your glass and steel. And it was named international style because that's where these buildings were being built. Everywhere. One of our first global trends in architecture. One last view of the Sears here to our right. Feel that true magnitude. And the ledge. It's a fun time, isn't it? It's pretty cool. I call it the mind-body disconnect, those glass boxes. Right? Because your mind, you can rationalize why you're safe out there. That's easy. Anyone can do that. You're safe. But obviously, they wouldn't let you out there if you weren't. The difficult reality is your body, it can't reason. Your brain is the only part of your body that can do that. So when you step out and look down 1,400 feet below you, biology takes over. Doesn't really matter who you are, how tough you may be. Your body starts sending signals to your brain saying, hey. It's amazing what you do if you put a bro on a boat and give him a beer. Dissertations should be written about that. You step out, look down, biology takes over, and your body starts sending signals to your brain saying, hey, genius, this is when we die. Please get off now. Thank you. It's really your body. So if you like adrenaline, I guess is what I'm saying, is you can head on up to the Sears. And I say Sears and not Willis, because that was its first name. Now Willis Insurance Group, they have the naming rights. Over the next 60 years, it could have 4 more names. And it's going to get really confusing if we keep on changing it. So Sears works. Also, we're in the United States. The United States takes quite a great pride in being stubborn. Chicagoans, even more so. So, if you're asking for directions to that building, and you don't want to wind up in Indiana, it's for the Sears here. It's just cool. You can call it whatever you want, Amelia, but it's useful to know it's Sears here. Up and to the right, serrated edges on the Mercantile Exchange Center. Multiple corners is a name for it and everything, serrated edges. But it tells me this building was built in the 1980s or the early 90s. Why? Well, what did everybody want when they went to work at that time? A corner office. And in this building, you got 4 times as many corner offices per floor, meaning 2 things. You could retain the best talent. And more importantly, the owner could charge more rent per square foot than any of its competitors. They perform the following function. Corner offices. Back to dueling Art Deco. You remember these guys, right? Different takes on the style, not only the river. To the left of the Daily News by Halliburton Roof, we got protruding clock towers designed to give an overall image similar to the Sphinx in Egypt with its paws coming upward. Etchings into this limestone as well. Very popular take on the style, actually. As opposed to what we find across the river. Party time! Weekend! A Roman spelling of the word building. Or Latin, right? A lot of people ask, why is that misspelled? It's not misspelled, it's just pretentious. Greek masks of comedy and tragedy adorning the side. Something you wouldn't normally see, right? Like European influence, like we talked about earlier, is for fine arts, but it's a special exception here. It's an opera house, so they put on that European influence, but before they were done, they put on a spooky Art Deco twist. Ostentatious, almost Art Nouveau, even. General Growth was from the 1950s. It's pretty short and widely regarded as the ugliest building along the Chicago River. So most people are pretty happy to see it gone. It was one of my favorites, but you know, it's fine. It is. It's fine, everything's fine, so it's fine. And what's really great is they're replacing it with a boring blue glass office building we already have 3 of in the last year, so that's nice. It's gonna have a river walk, so that'll be good. I reserve final judgment until the project is completed, right? I've been proven wrong before, but kind of bummed I missed the old ugly one. Had a lot of character. It's okay, don't worry about me. I'll cheer myself up by talking about bridges. These are awesome bridges. And I don't mean awesome in the colloquial sense, I mean awesome as in awe-inspiring, as these are important all across the world. We have more of this type of movable bridge than any other city in the world. These double-leaf trunnion bascule bridges are called Chicago bridges all over the planet for that very reason. And they're pretty cool. I really love this Lake Street Bridge in front of us. It's a double-decker, an elevated train. The L runs on top. And it was built in 1916. Yeah, back then and still today it can be opened and closed in the middle, right, with 2 leaves. All using the motor of a motor you might find in a 1998 Honda Civic. Theoretically, the 10 of us could get together and open and close these bridges with our power alone. Huge engineering feats of their time. A lot of them are beautiful too. Back out onto Wolf Point. Thank you for DJing for everybody else. Paddling your own boat. 2 people are currently pedaling. That's usually how it goes, about 10 minutes in. Different view of that, different view of that massive merchandise mart here in front of us. It's worth noting that this is 4.2 million square feet. It's massive, 1938. Massive as in it had its own zip code for a little bit. Massive as in the largest building in the world, what I was told.